Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode with Lisa Zahiya. So, quick backstory. Lisa and we met at the Fearless Fire Showcase that we referenced in a recent episode with Andrea Forsch. That is an amazing business baby of Eduardo Placer, who was a past guest from years ago, who just brings so much energy, life, and joy into every room he's in. And this experience where I got a chance to meet Lisa was no different. You'll hear this in this conversation, but I got a chance to meet her just before she went on stage to deliver her talk. And you could feel how magic she was from literally the moment that I was like, hi, how are you? She talks about this golden retriever energy in this episode, but so much of it was just like you could feel that there was a force in this human being. She had so much to say, and I didn't even know what she was going to talk about. And so I'm so excited for you to get a chance to meet her today. Lisa is a business strategist and life coach. She is a speaker and a facilitator, and she's the founder and CEO of Coaching with Lisa Zahiya, a small business development firm. But what you'll hear in this episode is she talks about her time where she got an MBA and was a corporate marketing director, and that she quit that to become a dancer. She then became a professional belly dancer and started her own dance studio, a belly dance studio, and made that an amazing success that brought so many people with diverse bodies in to embrace the power of their body and that amazing feeling of being able to be expansive and expressive in who you are. She now helps other business owners turn their passions into profitable businesses, just like she did with that dance studio. And so I am so excited for you to hear her nuggets of wisdom, her personal stories that just are bringing so much insight, but I think also giving us permission to really lean into the stories of our lives that may or may not feel like they are those pivotal moments in the real time. But in past reflection, you realize how much of the drumbeat of your true authentic self has been coming through since you were a very young person. So without further ado, I'm so excited for you to meet Lisa. Lisa, welcome to Checkbox Other. I am so freaking excited that you are here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I'm so excited to be here, so thank you.
I will have already gushed about you in the introduction, just so you know. So I hope you're feeling all that showering on you anyway. Even before we hopped on, I was already doing it. But the first thing I like to do when people are here is to give them the microphone to share what I call the Cliff Notes version of their journey, the twists, the turns, the aha moments that led them to who they are, where they are, and what they're doing in their lives right now.
Got it. So I'm gonna see if I can do my life story in under like 3 minutes. So I've done this before. I'm like, I can do it. That I was a very, very, very shy child. There's two very distinct parts to me. The first is that I went to a preschool where you had to sit in a little like pre-play area and there were books and puzzles. And you did one book or puzzle before you went into the playroom with the other kids. They could not get me to leave that area. I wanted to be alone and read a book, which is so funny because I just went to a bookstore. I'm in Miami, and I was like, I just want to be here and not talk to anyone. So that little girl is still here. The other is when I was in the first or the second grade, I went to school and they gave us an assignment and they said, draw what you want to be when you grow up. And I took that crown and I was like, so first kid done. I walked up, I gave it to the teacher, and she made this face like, ooh. And I didn't know what happened. And I took it home to show my parents. And I was like, I'm so excited. And they were like, ooh. Because I said, when I grow up, I want to be a bathing beauty or a tightrope walker.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, duh.
I mean,
And
come on
my
now.
parents, who were like amazing, supportive, feminist parents, were like, you could be the president or an engineer or an astronaut. And I was like, no, I want to be pretty and in the circus. And they were like, great. And that has also, I spent 14 years of my life as a professional belly dancer. So both of these things like really exist in me now. I spent my whole life on two very different tracks. One was loving performance and dance, and the other one was being good at standardized tests, which they tell kids means they're smart.
Oh, yeah.
And that one really usurped the other one. So I was told to do things. I'm a good kid, so I was like, I will do them. And from Princeton Model Congress to engineering camp to band camp, there were things I loved and there were places I really felt unfulfilled.
Mm.
And so and I was always dancing, but there were two things. One, the smart kid, that was a hobby. And two was that because of my body type, that was really hard because people, it was in the 90s, everybody was supposed to look like Kate Moss. And they were like, she's a big girl. Did all that, got an MBA, started working in corporate America, uh, hit a little bit of a twist in my life when I got divorced from my college sweetheart in my late 20s. It sort of crashed and burned very early. And I was like, I don't think I want to do this. So, like a normal person, I quit my job to become a professional belly dancer, sort of catapulted that into owning a dance business, which was very successful because it was very much focused on allowing people to transform through movement, and the antithesis to my experience with movement, which sort of took the joy away from me. While I was doing that, I saw that movement was making people change, and I got really interested in change. I also was very good at business. It's like a skill set. And I used both of those things to start a coaching business on the side, helping people grow their businesses to empower them to do what they love, and as a life coach, helping people change. That has been now my life's work since it's been 12 years, 10 of which, no, now like the beginning of which I was also running a dance studio and teaching, and has been my full time job since 2020.
Oh, wow. Man, I love that. First of all, I mean, have you told this story before? I don't know. It just felt so beautiful. I feel like there's a movie that just played as we were doing that. So I loved
There's
it.
like, I've definitely, this is not my first rodeo of talking about myself. It's gotten distinctly shorter.
Yeah, you nailed it. Truly. I think
Yeah.
you did hit the 3 minutes. So that was
Yeah.
really good. I feel like there were so many threads that you even were tying up as you were telling the story, which I love. Um, and I heard some other moments in that, but I'd love to hear if there is a time or maybe two that stand out in your life where you felt other different or as though you didn't belong, and how that's kind of informed how you either show up in the world yourself or you see the world now.
Sure. A lot. Probably really distinctly is that feeling of like that shy kid. You know, there's so many in adulthood, but that, childhood is so formative and really, like I really was like wanting to stay in my own little world.
Yeah.
And there's two things that are interesting about that about me is it allowed me to give myself and others permission to like take that time, be quiet, be that person. But the the other side of that coin is that nobody would describe me like that now. And like realizing that a lot of things are skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am like people are like, she's a master networker. I've danced in front of 4,000 people, and that is a skill set.
Right.
That doesn't mean I don't honor the part of me that wants to be quiet, but you can really learn how to do both.
Yeah.
The, the other times I felt like an other, this is interesting, is that a lot of time when people found out about my background when I was a dancer,
Yeah.
people were shocked that I didn't choose to pursue a career where people would know I was smart. How often people said to me, like they'd be like, "Are people surprised that you're smart?" And I was like, "Because I chose performance."
Yeah.
Uh, I remember being on the phone with a salesperson talking to him about software, and when he saw my picture on the website, he was like, "That's you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Wow, you're so smart." Which, aside from the misogyny, is
Right.
really something in society that I need to just sort of flex into being a lawyer or whatever so that people would acknowledge a skill set that I have. And that really gave me pause. And I was like, what? Why do I have to do that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really powerful. I feel like there's so many, and I love how you keep talking about these things as skill sets, because I think there's so much from people externally looking at us and whoever we are in this human race and the way our society works, is that we feel like we can clock things based on appearance, and we can clock things based on buckets and boxes we check, based on our resume, based on the clothes that we're wearing, based on the space you're seeing us in, that you therefore know my entire life story based on what your past experiences seem to mirror patterns. And it's really fascinating as you're talking about these things that are like, no, these are choices I'm actively making in how I'm showing up in the spaces that I'm in. That I am a shy person. And also, I know when to step into aspects of myself that are like, all right, shy person, we're going to just have to have a little bit more energy to step into this thing that's a little bit unorthodox for our normal way of operating. And we'll come back here. And it's okay to still be shy and be able to stand on stage or dance on stage in front of 4,000 people and be able to walk up to someone and introduce yourself. And how it's really powerful, I think, especially as you're somebody that's coaching people in life, in business, in leadership in that way, that you have the opportunity to still be a shy leader. You still have the opportunity to be every aspect of yourself and step into the parts of and the skills that you have in your toolkit to be able to do that. I think oftentimes when we see these kind of ways that people performatively show up to operate as a smart person or even as a performer, it's saying, oh, well, this is the only skill set or toolbox you must have, versus it being like, no, I'm a Swiss Army knife on top of, like, I'm the entire tool set. I'm Home Depot. So just like
Right.
I'm choosing how to show up right now versus you telling me how I'm approved in this space or how you, the potential you see in me. It's such a powerful, I think even just the way you said that, just kind of reclaiming the power in your choices and the ways that you can kind of pick which part of the Swiss Army knife to use or which aisle in Home Depot to show up with.
Yeah, and then all of them are allowed and can be witnessed. If you had a triptych, like three pictures of me, and
Yeah.
one was me right now, 44 years old, one was me in a belly dance costume, all done up, in front of a crowd. One was me in a pantsuit at a meeting, speaking to an investor, presenting. And one is me going out in a dress and sandals because I have leg tattoos. And those three are all going to have preconceptions, ideas, how I am as a partner, how I am as an aunt, as a sister, as a human, and as a woman. Like people are going to make big assumptions about all three, and they're going to respect all three differently depending on their lens and experience. So all of those are one person.
Yeah. And there's so many others, right? And that's the beauty of what you're
Yeah.
saying. It's
And
like
then there's like
kaleidoscope.
the like pajamas and the glasses with the book, and
Yes.
then like out with my friends.
Yeah.
And that I can choose, I'm allowed, you can bear witness to all of them. And actually, in all of them, the value is the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't diminish myself in that. Can you talk about a time in your life where you felt fully seen as yourself, whether it be, all three of those or more? Is there a time in your life that stands out when you're like, oh, they saw me, versus seeing whatever version of myself that we were talking about, that they're kind of making all those presuppositions around?
Sure. Um, I would say a couple of things. One is performing, because whether or not, I mean, at any point, anyone's vision of anything is not actually the truth because it has their lens on it.
Yeah.
I, it's like anthropology. There is always the viewer. So, but in performance, when I was really in connection to the music, I was fully witnessed as myself because I was fully myself.
Mhm. Okay.
Forget them, you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But like, I was fully present and open, and um, especially when there's live music. There's this term in Middle Eastern dance called tarab, which is like when the dancer becomes the music.
Okay.
Just like, and to me, it's like when I'm fully channeling. And that I always say before I perform or before I speak, please allow me to do what these people need today. It's the release of my ego. And to me, that's fully being seen. Because I have decided, I elect, and maybe I'm realizing this right now, to not actually worry about being fully seen because of that lens. You know, whether people are seeing, especially with women, they're going to make all these preconceptions based on even like, I have a body type that people can read as very sexual, and because I'm curvy, so like you can bring that or not. I don't care. So I actually think I would say performing, teaching, and speaking, I feel fully seen because I am in my fullest expression, not because of what it's because I'm allowing them to see that, not because of what they're seeing.
Yeah, I like that. I think the big part of the reason this question is like, when are you feeling that way? Is that, and I'm going to put this word, maybe it's not the word you're feeling, flow, a feeling kind of fully embodied and powerful in how you're showing up in this wonderful vessel you have to be able to express through, and all of the wisdom that your intellect is bringing, but also what your soul is bringing, and how you're connecting to however the sensory experience for other people. Cool, cool, great. I hope you receive what you're meant to, but also here's how I am feeling like I'm taking up space. I'm allowing myself to kind of fill the corners of the potential of who I am and how I want to show up right now. Such a power, because I think there is a part of this that when we focus on the other, right? And when I was talking about earlier of how people see you, they can see you on the other side of the block and make decisions about who they think you are. And the feeling of when you are your internal self trying to be like, who am I? How do I want to operate in this world? And even in your 3-minute cliff notes, you were talking about kind of those moments that were like, okay, this is, I guess I'm stepping into the smart version of the standardized test base of this. Cool, cool, cool. All right, now I'm the corporate MBA person. All right, cool. All right, I'm the wife. Do I want to be? I don't know if I want to be here. Okay, I want to, and how all of these intellectual decisions of how our body is showing up then can channel into what does it feel like to be in that space. You're like, oh yeah, this is me. I'm not having to sacrifice those parts of myself in order to be here.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm in one right now, which makes me be like, oh, we're in it all the time. We're like, but what's different now is I'm like distinctly choosing what do I want and allowing for that. That's very different than I don't really want to be a bathing beauty right now, but I get that part of me. I want to be quiet and read the book, but I also want to talk in front of 4,000 people and allowing the evolution of myself to exist. And I am most fully seen when I don't give a flying whatever about what people, okay, about what people are saying. Like in those moments, I think you saw me speak that speech. There's sometimes when I was teaching, when I was in that flow, that tarab, that, there's a Spanish term called duende. When I'm in those moments, I am fully seen and I don't really care what people think.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love this so much. I mean, and just so you know, I've learned that my body responds to these things that are like, okay, our brains are saying them, but it's more than where our brains are going to take it. And so got some chills, got a little heat in my body, and that's always a good thing. Um,
Good.
so as we're talking about this, you brought up the kind of Kate Moss era, which is so funny because I always think of that too, like that 90s pocket of like, this is what perfection is, to not, my brain was like, to not eat, to become super pale, to like all the things that I wasn't, right? I wasn't born to be. And so many, even people that were born that way, still felt like there was something wrong with them. Can you talk a little bit about, I know you've talked about, especially in the talk that you gave that I got to see, about this experience of feeling like you had to make yourself smaller.
Mhm.
What can you talk a little bit about what that was like, what that, how you kind of navigate that, I guess now in I'm sure as people are coming to you, working on building their business and working on making changes in their life, there is this, do I contract or do I expand? That kind of experience of feeling like I should be too small. And then when is it okay for me to take up space?
Yeah, I think that the biggest affliction of people I work with, which is primarily female identified, not all, humans is the desire to, the fear of being seen.
Yeah.
And I think that people come to me a lot for that because it is something that I've been forced to work through. And I think at some points chose to work through. Like, I was not totally comfortable with this and continued to very publicly put myself out there because I was choosing to navigate it very publicly. And I think that, one of there's a bunch of stuff related to this, but there's two things I would say is I realized at some point that a desire to make my body smaller was making me smaller in expression. And I talked about like not getting up and standing up in front of people because I don't want them to see me from the back, of like either over sexualizing or desexualizing myself at different times in my life because that was the only like acceptable thing to do with this body type of being like pear shaped. But I think that two of the most formative things that allowed me to stop playing small and wanting to be small is, uh, one, choices I made to actively go against that. Being like, I have very tattooed legs, which I haven't tattooed my upper body because I do exist in some worlds where I'm able to sort of exist without that. And I did it because of all the shame I had around my legs. And I very actively put art all over them. It is the centerpiece of what people look at when they see me in a skirt or shorts. And I love it. I love art.
Yeah.
I love art and creative expression. Back to the bathing beauty. I didn't really want to be a bathing beauty. I don't really know what that means, but I wanted to be decorated and I wanted to be creative.
Mm,
And that is what I've done to my body.
yeah.
The second thing I would say is seeing what it did to girls. I, as an adult, have worked with girls a lot as a dance teacher and seeing, like seeing girls when this got flipped and my body, like the Kardashian body, which before that, the Kardashians did not, they popularized it, but it's the body type of non white, a lot of non white people. When that became popular, I had teenage girls who were beautiful being like, I just want to look like you. And I was like, no, you want to look like you because you were going through the exact same thing that I went through. And that made me, to stand for all of us is easier sometimes than to stand for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I did that. And then the third thing I would say to go back to the comment of like this body type that's so beautiful that got popularized by white women, even though it oftentimes comes from like Caribbean and African cultures, is realizing who said this. That by playing into diet culture and body culture, I was playing into racism and misogyny. And that the root of that is something that I don't stand for and I don't choose in my life, or I'm actively fighting against, both in myself and the culture. And if I want to be anti these things, then I need to be accepting of my own body
Yeah.
because the desire for thinness, not health, but for thinness is racist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, it's so funny. I think there is such a dance, especially for women or at such a young age, that you are, well, historically, at least in this country and a lot of countries from a patriarchal system, it's that you are a product. You are something that is being traded from a dowry system. And so it is about kind of that meat market mentality of like, how does your body show up? Do you have childbearing hips? Like that, all that energy that is about your worth being your external self. And post-feminist movement, we are, as women, able to talk about how fucked up that is, and also realize that just because we're shining a light on it doesn't mean it's not still in the underpinnings of so many systems that we're operating in. And then you fold over, right, the fact that we have such a representation issue that when you start bringing more people into room, you start realizing like, no, hardly any person actually looks like whatever this ideal version of self is. And no matter where that ideal prototype works, the beauty of it is that every person's body is really different. And not only is it different in this moment, but it will change over time. And so the permission we give ourselves to actually love our bodies is, I feel like, so revolutionary on so many levels. It's dismantling so many systems of oppression, but it is also so deeply seated at such a young age in how we see ourselves taking up space. And I think it's so fascinating as you're talking about you as a kid being like, okay, here are the things I want to do. I want to be a bathing beauty and I want to walk on a tightrope. Both things are about how I hold, own, and honor my body. And it also being something that, like, over time, so many of us are grappling with how we step into these bodies. And I think female bodies in particular change so much outside of our control, oftentimes hormonally, all the elements of what happens over our life cycles, that it's a really fascinating thing that we're supposed to try to stay young. We're supposed to try to stay fit, have a rebound, bounce back, but all the kind of language that we get that's about infantilizing ourselves and minimizing the power that we hold in that femininity, and we
Yep,
hold all the power through our life cycle.
absolutely. And you know what's interesting is that I'm not opposed to changing your body, says the lady with all the tattoos on her leg. Like, the question I ask myself is, am I doing this for someone else, or does this feel affirming to me?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
very openly will talk about the fact that I have Botox because I stare at Zoom all day long, and we could
Everyone.
fully take it apart. Do I need it? Probably not. But like, I sat down and I thought, this is going to make me feel good, and it doesn't change my worth.
Yes.
People gain and lose weight and they might choose it. It doesn't mean you can't change. It's the idea that you aren't unworthy
Yeah.
or you can't have something because of your body.
Yeah. 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 I think, it's so funny as you were talking about, well, like, just now you talked about it, but you were talking about it a little earlier, and I scribbled it down over here, was this how you can change your body, or how, as your body changes, watching how the world interacts with you differently. And I remember it was around 2013. I was working with a therapist and I was talking to her about, it was fascinating. I had just started gaining weight and I was in corporate, and I started gaining weight and realizing that I stopped getting catcalled in the same way. I started gaining weight and felt myself disappearing in a way that I was like, well, I'll take this.
Mhm.
Aside from the whole, like, really disappearing in a whole lot of other ways, right? So there was an active part of this that was like, oh, this feels like I'm less in the spotlight because whatever curvaceous, again, you're talking about the nature of your body being a sexual object, even when you're super young and your body just looks that way. It was such a bizarrely, I think, part of my brain was like, this is freeing. It's like, no, I'm trying to make myself not matter, make myself disappear because I don't like how people are interacting with me. And so I think it's interesting as you talk about the active choices of doing whatever you want to do with your body and having it be about gaining power back. It about having that agency and that value stand strong and true no matter who and where you are. And the fact that we do have a culture that, as you're talking about, like Botox, the whole way that Botox came onto the scene was like, oh, well, there's some shame around it or taboo for us to talk about. It's like, no, fuck, I want to do this. I'm going to do it. And so the difference between body changes and shifts that are really about how do I feel relative to how other people are looking at me versus, all right, I got to stare at my face all day. If I could do this and it makes me feel great, cool, let's do
Yeah.
it.
You
The
know,
difference of the,
yeah, and I think the owning it is the big thing because like it's not realistic. I'm going to be 45 this year to think that like my forehead would actually look like this. Just like it's not realistic to think that my leg would look the way it does without the tattoos. You know what I mean? And so what was really interesting to me is that a couple years ago I got diagnosed with fibroids, which are tumors that grow in your uterus. They don't really know why. It brings up a whole other subject of women's health. I was like,
I was going to
great.
be like, yep.
I was like, how does this happen? They were like, we don't know. I was like, listen. But it made me gain a lot of weight because there were tumors in my body, and it really like took me right up and into a lot of the things I say because I couldn't control it. And I was like, one, I didn't love it.
Mm,
So I had to fight for my own worth. which actually was great for me and what I do. I'm glad it happened. Two, I was really like in a lot of pain and it's hard. And you like, it's not really comfortable to look pregnant when you're not pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
And then after I had the surgery, I had surgery for it, like I immediately looked different. And yes, like I was like, am I happy because I look different? Like, allow me to exist in the society I'm in and say yes.
Yeah.
But also, it allowed me to examine being happier because I could move again. And also, there's like practicalities of like all the clothes I owned fit me again.
Right.
But
Yeah.
um, I think that we have to be kind to ourselves. Like, if I really took life fully apart, would I wear as much makeup as I do? I don't know. I like it, but
Yeah.
like, there's probably times I wouldn't choose it. But I'm very kind, and just instead of taking that apart,
Yeah.
and there are people who choose none of those things, and I admire them, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
But I instead try to be generous to myself and just constantly reinforce my worth, not having to do with
Yeah.
any of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, I mean, the power, truly, I just feel like there is so much that is powerful about the choice and the honoring and the removing of judgment.
Mhm.
No matter how we've talked about this, right? Like so much of it is that it is worthy of debate or the kind of pulling apart, but also like that judgment of, is this good today or is this bad today? It just is. Am I allowed to
It
just
is.
hear the human being of it all? Do I have to do a whole bunch of stuff, or can I just be and trust that what I'm doing next is what I meant to be doing next for myself without having to
One,
distract or pull away? Go ahead. Yeah.
oh yeah, one of my favorite things to do is to tell men I'm on dates with that I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I had Botox," or "I did this," and they are on the date with me because they're attracted to me, and then they're like, "Oh my God, you did that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like put that in your pipe and smoke it because you're," or they're like, "You're so pretty," but I'm like, "These eyelashes are fake," and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Listen, I'm loud and proud.
But
I'm gonna tell
also
you."
like it's 2023. There's a part of me that's like, guys, what world are you in that these
You
are?
know, for me, I'm like, this is great editing who I'd want to go out with again. So this is perfect. Some guys are like, good for you.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually,
or
that's a
they'll be,
really good. That's really good. I feel like it's kind of like when you're in a job interview and you ask a question that's a little bit like awkward to the person. You're like, but this is what's going to happen in real life. So, like,
yeah,
what's going to happen in real life when you don't agree with me, or that I say something that might not be societally acceptable, but maybe we're on the same page about it? This is how I'd find it out. It wouldn't be some questionnaire we're filling out or some way that you swiped me on a dating app. It's the real life stuff. So like, how do you handle this? How do you let me, how do you allow your relationship to be somebody that might be making choices different than you? In the same way, again, in the workplace, how does that work? You allow people to be the person that they are versus the prototype or the model you want them to fit themselves into.
exactly.
Oh, I want to be, there's a part of me, it's like, can I come on your dates? They feel fun. All right. So,
Sure.
yeah, I know.
Come on.
Double date time. Let's go. All right. So here's one of the things that I absolutely like. It was so intriguing to me when you were talking about your background in the talk that I got to see you speak about. When you talk about loving dance and knowing that you wanted to move your body, you knew tightrope. I didn't know the tightrope part. When you were a dancer, I was watching one of your TED talk. And you were talking about going into dance, and I think ballet was kind of your first love. How
Mhm.
did you find belly dancing as the place that you're like, oh, this is me and my flow? Can you talk a little bit about the kind of choice of belly dance, how it kind of pulled you? And I think there's at least my understanding of all this stuff is out there. There's a part of this that is pulling to like ancestral lineage lines. There's something deeper than, oh, I chose this because I liked the vibe of it. Can you talk a little bit about how
Yeah.
belly dance is so transformational?
Yeah, belly dancing, it's something I've always been interested in, and it's something I always loved. And this really interesting because I was teaching a hip hop class at a studio in Washington, D.C., like as fun after work.
Yeah.
And there was a belly dance class after me, and I can't say I didn't participate in it, but dancers will make fun of belly dance because they're like, it's not real dance. They're just shaking. Some of them are old. And the teacher was in her 50s. And I was like, what is this? Like, and there were so many women going in, and the women didn't look like a normal dance class because it wasn't like, especially adult dance tends to be ex dancers.
Mhm.
And it was really beautiful. And the teacher, she was beautiful, and there were a lot of different body types. And I always used to stand and watch. And I would be listening to music. And one day she was like, "Are you going to come in?" And I was like, "Oh." And I
Did
went
you see?
in.
Okay.
Yeah, you see me? The last 8 weeks, I've been like looking at you. And it was like the great love of my life. And I think the most important thing to say about belly dance is that it is not a fantasy. It is not just this easy, beautiful female thing. Like, this is real dance. It's called rock sharki in Arabic, from real countries, from real people. And if you do it, what I would say correctly, you get to learn about one of the most misconstrued things in our culture, which is the Middle East,
Mm.
and language and music and people. And it is a beautiful expression of uh, what I would say, and I'm gonna just, the Western me is disassociating this with gender, but femininity and softness. And it's amazing. And it also was accepting of my body type, which is interesting because it also goes outside of the European sort of colonialist Victorian bodies.
Yeah. I'll say this in my journey to claiming, understanding, honoring the power of the female body and my body in particular that I had disassociated with when I stopped playing soccer. So soccer was a huge part of how I saw my body working in the world. And then corporate was like all these curves and these button down shirts. They don't know how to make it so the buttons don't pop open. And my
Right.
hips, I need to be able to walk in so guys don't look at my chest first because that's all the most of the rooms I was in. I need to make sure I become
Mhm.
separate from my body so they consider me smart, like you were talking about. And a huge part of in my 30s reclaiming my relationship with my body was understanding that the things that were seen as seductive and like that gyration movement, the ability to use your hips and move your body and understand what body movement has the ability to do, not only in like flexibility and hip movement and power and the ability to have stances structure to be able to feel your center of gravity, but also the power that body movement, especially with hip movement and all the things that we as women are told to like sit still, look pretty, the opposite of that, the amount of healing that can happen and the amount of kind of
Oh, yeah.
reactive processing that we're able to do that we just store in so much of our bodies that we have to kind of keep tight and small and and cross-legged and all these things that are just like don't let your body move in the ways that it has the capacity to move. Can you talk a little bit about how, as you're doing this work yourself, but also I'm just making an assumption, as you're working with people around with your background and here is how we make life changes. Can you talk a little bit about how kind of reclaiming the freedom to move your body and take up space is really creating that connection to healing?
Sure. And I think that I go back to, again, like, who said this? Why? I always think it's good to be like, why? Who said? That
Yes.
is a great place to start with a lot of our held beliefs. And there's a lot of judgment about movement styles that are healing and powerful. And I want to say that this can be resourced to many scholars in essentially what would be considered the Afro and Afro Caribbean diaspora that were objectified and even now are judged as super sexual when it's really about power and claiming the feminine energy and sexuality. So, like, it sort of stems from that. You know, I remember taking a dance hall class, and a friend of mine was there who's a dance professor, and she is African American, and her daughter was there. And there's a part where you, like, I mean, dance hall is very direct dance form, and you sort of like put your hand on your crotch. And the daughter was like, I don't want to do that in front of my mom. And her mom was like, do it. It's powerful. And you're in a safe space to express like that as a teenager. Obviously, there's that. But she was like, who said you're not allowed to do that? whose part of the body is that? It's yours. And within that, there's a lot of freedom in learning to move in a way that feels good to you. And there's also a lot of like science coming out about where things are stored. Like if your hips are tight, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So I certainly will meet people where they are with movement, but there is no part of my coaching that doesn't involve a movement practice, even if it's breathing and shoulder rolls,
Yeah.
because change can't happen from the neck up, change happens from the neck down.
Mm.
So to fully transform, you need to embody, be in the body, and transform from the neck down, and that is going to involve movement.
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. And how do you feel? I mean, I'm assuming people that come to you might not be as resistant. I'm thinking of like a lot of the places I was in were very masculine, very white, uh, very do not show up as too much of anything but this prototype of what is an acceptable professional. So there's a lot of resistance to even wearing something other than like light blue as a button-up shirt for a man is like a really big deal. Wearing anything that shows your collarbone, big deal, So the idea of actually giving yourself permission to even try, I'm sure there's a lot of kind of resistance, whether it's
Oh.
conscious or kind of like behind the scenes that people are trying to break through as well. Because it's not just about the body movement itself, it's the permission. How is
Yeah,
that?
it's the permission. And I think that a good coach meets people where they are.
Yeah.
So the way that, like, I'm teaching at a yoga festival in a couple weeks,
Mm.
the way that I enter and choose actions for that room is different than the corporate workshops that I do. But there are simple things like shaking, walking around the block, breathing that feel acceptable to a lot of people
Yeah.
because if I can't meet them where they are, I can't help them change. So why am I going to push somebody into a space that's uncomfortable? And I want to respect where people are.
Yeah.
So I definitely, but what's also amazing about movement is it changes people. So if I take a room full of, I mean, people aren't really hiring me for corporate workshops unless there's some bent towards creativity and interest.
Yeah.
But for me, like if there are a room full of men and women, and we just like shake it out, and then joy and being silly is very helpful. So we'll do something silly that's within the confines, and sometimes I'll just do some arms or like we move a little bit. People are more open to what I have to say after that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
100% all the time.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, even in your talk, you had us get up, you had us move, and it was like, I mean, and let me honor that room was full of energy. That room was great. It wasn't some stiff, awkward place.
Right.
And it elevated the energy we felt in our bodies. We were processing, even just in your talk, you had brought so much emotion and you brought so much storytelling, you brought so much wisdom. And still, the way we got to metabolize that and have it land a little differently because our bodies got to move was really, really powerful. And
Yeah.
so,
I mean, just like food is literally energy, we need to metabolize through our feelings and our processes.
yeah,
So I've never had a room not do it.
yeah,
And again, I do think there's rooms where they would not do it, but they probably don't want to talk to me, and I probably would say no, because that's not going to feel good.
yeah.
But I think that, also you see things moving towards that in the world, or especially the world that I exist in.
Well, yeah, yeah. I think, the other thing that's so interesting is um, some people actually need to be able to move their bodies to process, learn, and communicate. And again, when you're like, who tells you these things? There's a very specific way we see as being adult and professional or capable or smart. And it's gotten to a point where you strip yourself of so much of your humanity. So as we're talking about all the isms, right? The sexism, the ageism, the racial oppression, we're talking about so many issues that are about stripping you from yourself, taking that kind of, when you're talking about the joy and the kind of like popping of like fiery catalyst energy that comes after you're moving your body, the giggling that happens, that's like that little kid creativity, the little kid who drew those pictures, like, this is who I want to be. What do you mean? Like, there's so much power in that. And unfortunately, it has not necessarily always been cultivated as adult. To be an adult is to sit here and not swear. I'm like, swear, like that whole thing of how we're supposed to do these things, even if we don't know why or how. I was in a corporate training 2 weeks ago, and I was sitting there. I said, what does a leader look like? And the person answered, he goes, but I don't believe that. And then looks down, he goes, oh no, but I'm wearing what I just said. I don't know. I don't normally do this, but I put this on today. And it's a really fascinating thing, because it's like these things, these pieces of programming are given to us. And until we give ourselves permission to ask the question, is this mine or is this someone else's? We give ourselves permission to say, what does it look like if I show up differently? What does it look like if I move my body differently? And watch how it's like your body's like, oh, thank God. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for shaking. Thank you for moving your hips. Thank you for laughing in this place. How much it's just kind of like going against the feeling of resistance that you're in these places where you have to kind of dehumanize yourself. And the permission to just open back up, it's like a breath of fresh air. So even as you're like, go take a walk, our bodies are like, thank you. And
Yeah, but just like, I would say to every human, just walk around the block. It will change your life. And especially if I want to be creating something in my life, when I'm thinking about that change,
yeah.
do it while you walk. And like you said, I used to teach like Common Core curriculum to kids who had alternative ways of learning through dance. We would do things like time, map reading. I used to teach a class called Shake It Like a Parallelogram. That was like using your body to make shapes. Like those kids become the most creative vice president of Google people.
Yeah.
And so we have to honor that. Also, like I am kinesthetic, which means that if I'm talking to you and I'm like fiddling with something, I think better.
Yeah.
That's a I don't get labeled ADD or ADHD, but it's all the same thing. It's like we all exist on spectrums.
Right. We all process a little differently. And if we give ourselves permission to watch the magic that happens, it's really,
Yeah.
really it's so funny. I don't know why this coming up. I saw this on some algorithm of some social media feed. We'll just say that because I don't remember which one. But someone is a basketball player. His name's Kenny Smith. And he was talking about how he was on a plane and sitting next to a therapist who told him that like, don't sleep on planes. You have so much creativity because your body knows it's at a higher altitude. And so it's processing so differently. And so really honoring the fact that your body, because I think a lot of times, especially in the COVID Zoom stuck in your house culture, I think we forgot how much power happens when you're able to move, when you're able to be in different places, that your body can actually be optimized in non-traditional states.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I also think it's why I cried during Pitch Perfect on a plane. I was like, why am I crying? Because we're like heightened in a lot of ways. But I mean, as somebody who's taking, like I am doing digital nomad for a couple of months, it feels different. You feel more creative.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. Okay. One of the things that you talked about in your talk was a little bit about kind of this online bullying space. And one of the things that first of all, I think so important for us to talk about, and the curiosity that I have is around how you build boundaries in a world where people kind of can anonymously contribute to whatever things that you're saying out in the world. Whether that be making comments about how you look or the things you're saying. I think there is this like, I don't have to be a nice human being. I don't have to be civil. I don't have to have any ability to see you as a person. I can just throw anything out I want on the internet at you for you to digest, hold, or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about how you personally have set up how you interact with people in the kind of wild west of the internet, and how people may or may not be showing up as the person they would be if they were in front of your face having to say the same things?
Yes, I think that that's an important question. Here is my two top tips for that. Number one is I don't talk about anything I'm currently processing. So the story I told during this talk happened like 6 or 7 years ago, where somebody called me fat. Also, like it was clearly a crazy person, and it was definitely written in like capital and lowercase letters, and I was like, whoa. But if I did write a post about it that day, but if I had been processing things about my body at the time, I wouldn't have put it on the internet.
Yeah.
So, like, the scar had healed.
Yeah.
It was still there. It's still itchy. It reminds me I think a lot of times about things in our life as like a whirlpool. And when I was having what I would say like diagnosable food issues, I was in the black hole. And here's the thing. Now I'm all the way over here in the pool, which I was also when I got that. So I still feel little ripples, and
Right.
those are reminders that I can help other people. Occasionally I need to help myself. If I was having a bad body image day, I wouldn't have written that, done the speech, anything.
Yeah.
So talk about it when you're feeling okay about it because it is a very public forum.
Yeah.
And you know, honestly, like I feel like I have to say this. Like calling me fat is so lazy because I am an acceptable person to talk about. I am white. I am standard size. I wear size 12. So you have excluded the humanity of anybody who's an amazing, like, uh, of any size larger than me. And I think that's really crappy. Like, I'm thick and that is lazy. Like you shouldn't be aggressive and not lazy in your bullying, but I'm just like I also think that when I talk about it, I talk about it from that stance and I try to openly acknowledge that because some people the most interesting critique I got when I posted that
Mm.
is some people were like, she's not fat enough to talk about this. And I was like, yeah, it happened to me. I understand your perspective, but like, I'm going to say what happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I fully also acknowledge that. And I also fully acknowledge race because it's a different experience and it's sometimes it's a safer experience. But that's why I feel like I want to talk about it, but also acknowledge that. My second thing with bullying is like permission to delete.
Oh,
People be writing crazy stuff on my posts all the time. I just delete it.
yeah.
This is my house. You can get out.
Yeah.
And if it's gonna take a turn, I won't do it. You see people interacting. The third thing I would say is when I achieve my goals and I'm at a higher level, I'm gonna stop reading. I'm gonna have somebody else do it.
Mm.
Because I do think it could still take me down a little bit. And like for instance, I don't look at unsubscribes to my newsletters because it was
Mhm.
hurting. I was hurting my feelings. I was like, why don't they like me? And
Yeah.
they're fully allowed to unsubscribe. I'm an aggressive marketer. So I know that, but it was hurting my feelings. So my assistant looks at it. I would definitely choose to just not read it. And also, honestly, like social media is not me. There's so many of those paintings of me that are never there. It is a place for me to showcase my work and attract the people who might be the right people, but it is a created brand. It is very much, I think, that I am a person of integrity. It is a reflection of me and what I do. But like I've talked about awful breakups on there way after they happened
Right.
because of it would have taken me down at the moment. And there's a lot of like eating chicken wings on the couch that just crying,
Yeah.
watching Pitch Perfect that never make it there
Yeah.
because that's not a good boundary either. And I rely on my friends for things like that. So those are my one, don't talk about it if it's real. Two, use it for work. Three, delete the shit you don't want there. It's yours.
Yeah.
Turn the comments off. Like I was just reading, there's this amazing woman who's a hijabi. She wears a hijab. She decided to take it off. She made it part of social media. And there's this amazing video of her talking to Jonathan Van Ness. And he was like, don't read it. Let somebody else do it. Because that is also like a very judged part of that world.
Yeah.
And don't read it. And then let somebody else do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have a team.
I think it's so powerful. It's funny because I think what you touched on a lot of things. One of the pieces that I think is really interesting with regard to social media is where it started and to where it is now, that there is still this assumed access to friendship and everything about your life, and that you are like in the early days of Facebook, it was the people you knew. And now it's like everybody everywhere, but you still have that assumed intimacy that you haven't earned, nor are you I don't know, nor do you have the right to really be contributing to my decision making or my thoughts about myself. And also, the way that they're built still allows that level of access and that level of my 15 minutes of angry typing in caps and all the things are supposed to be as valid as if somebody that really has seen and understood everything that you're doing. We have the same level of notification in your world. We have the same, and how that just creates a very distorted understanding of connection. And how, like, as you're saying, like, my friends know this stuff. I work through this stuff in therapy. I do this stuff outside of social media, but apparently everybody thinks they know. I mean, I have so many people in my life that are like, oh, I know everything about you because of social media. I'm like, you know nothing about what's happening in my life.
And all my like crazy pants,
Right.
it's not
Like,
because like I do
I
some stuff
know.
that's like weird and
Yeah, but that's beautiful. You should, right? Like, we shouldn't
yeah.
just be, our humanity shouldn't be what's shown on social media. And it's I think it's a really fascinating thing because as somebody too, I think you were like, it's integrity. I'm not like somebody else, but I always find it really interesting when people are like, oh, you're just like I thought you were online. I'm like, good. And also,
Right.
you're interacting me through business. So you're still gonna get the certain, you're not coming over on Saturday night to have a
Yeah, like I'm allowed to be boundaried. I'm allowed to have a professional personal brand. I am allowed to not let you in on everything.
right.
And I feel like that's healthier.
Yeah.
Um,
I want to ask one other thing because I think you alluded to this, but I just want to like put the words out there around kind of that unpaid emotional labor piece to having to hold space and interact with other people's projections. Because I think when somebody, and again, I didn't see this, but you're talking about like them kind of unhinged typing everywhere and just dropping their fight that they had about something else onto you. It's like, hey, yo, there's probably another place for you to put this, but there is this assumed space that we will hold, especially if you're in any place of helping people or creating space for people to change and being like, I'll meet you where you are. There is this, well, this is where I am, hold my shit, let's go. It's like, no, there's a difference between you working with me to do this work and this being a place where you're just trying to shit all over it, and really honoring that, like, I'm not here to battle with you on social media. I'm not here to replace wherever else you need, like, go get a punching bag for that. I don't, my comment section's not there. And so I love your delete, unfollow, no thank you. Here, can there be a surrogate that can go through and look at my unsubscribes and filter that? But really giving yourself that permission for distance and the no thank you of it all too. Because I think, again, that alert culture, that notification, that kind of aggregating everybody at the same place can make it kind of difficult
yeah.
to feel like I'm still a person that accepts people, but I don't want that. Not in my virtual living room. No, thank you.
Yeah, and also I think like the New Yorker in me is like, shut up and get out. Like that, well, I don't want to be like that all the time. I do want to be like that in that situation. Like my my like spiritual version of myself is like, yo, you're not welcome here. And like I think the other thing is I'm not going to change somebody's mind on the internet.
Oh,
And also a lot of those like some of the ones where it starts to get political and stuff, like it's not actually real people. So like don't waste your time.
yeah. Well, thank you. I feel like, um, especially, I mean, we're not even in election season, but that's where it's like that is a relatively normal drumbeat and it will just get louder. And so I think really having that toolkit to be able to choose from, even if you're not out there doing this for your business, if you're having these experiences in life, being
Yeah.
able to give yourself permission to say, you know what, that's not, internet or not, you're not getting my attention right now. I'm not going to let that kind of knock me off my tracks today because of something else that's happening. So I love
Yeah.
that.
And honestly, like when that person told me I was fat, I wrote back, I sent it to them, and then I blocked them. I didn't want to have a discussion with them. And I posted the response because I wanted to share it with my community. And that's fine.
What do you feel like is the most powerful learning that you've had coming out the other side of the kind of being stuck in COVID isolation and now kind of being in this space of like, I can go out in the world, breathe air, open my arms and be around people? What do you feel like has been the most transformative experience for you? Again, COVID is not over. And also we are in a different phase of being able to kind of be more expansive in the world.
I would say two things. One is that I am like a human golden retriever who needs people. So that I was like, okay, bye, as soon as they were like, you can go out. And I also acknowledge that that's not everybody's truth. So I think that's the big thing is that I was like, I'm gonna choose this. I want to be around people. And also like I learned that I believe in humanity.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say still. I always have. And so that's one. My second big lesson is that this is a business lesson and this is excluded like the terrible things that happened during COVID. There's opportunity everywhere. My business changed because of how I showed up.
Mm,
Yeah. Like at the very beginning of COVID, I was like, all dance is free. Here we go. It's going to be first, it's me filming it with my phone. We're going to figure it out. We're going to make it better. And then it got better and better. And then I had an online studio. And then I was able to launch the coaching business, which took off. And I attribute it to choosing to be a leader. I didn't complain. Some personal choice. Also,
yeah.
complaining online is good for if you're trying to sell something. I just want to say that. And uh, yeah, there's opportunity in every single situation.
I love that. Okay. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, work with you,
Mhm.
get this magical, I get like the magical dust of your wisdom. I can feel it already coming off this episode. What's the best way for them to connect with you?
You go to, I love a vanity URL. So if you go to
Yes.
chatwithlisaz.com, you can schedule a free call with me. I'm like a human golden retriever. Let's talk. And there's a variety of programs that I do. I've got some new stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Some more low cost ways to work with me, which is exciting. I currently have space for two more private clients. So chatwithlisaz.com. And then if you just put my name, my last name is Zahiya. It's my handle for everything, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the things.
Okay. Nice. All right. I'm excited for this golden retriever energy out in the world. For the fellow golden retrievers out there, we're all wagging our tails. So I'm glad to be in community with you all.
Yeah.
And I just need to say, I'm so grateful that Eddie Eduardo's Fearless World brought us together. He was a guest on here years ago. And I didn't know the power of the room I was going to walk into. I knew there were going to be great people, but it was truly like when you first, I saw you right before you went on, I was like, ooh, okay, this woman is a force. Yes. And then sitting there and getting to bear witness to you in the flow, in that fully embodied sense of here I am, everybody, was absolutely such a gift. And so for anybody listening, considering having you in a room with them and letting your magic just like permeate through everything, like don't even question it. Chat with Lisa Z, but also just say yes, just go. Golden retriever energy times a million. So I just want to say thank you for that. And thank you so much for joining today. It's been truly such a gift.
What a pleasure. Thank you.
Now, Lisa is truly one of those people that you can't not smile when you're talking to her. And so if you were listening and smiling as well, welcome. Me too. I was smiling the whole time. If you haven't checked us out on YouTube, you can actually watch us too. So I find that to be fun, especially as we're talking about movement and stuff. As you're listening to this, there's a lot of movement as we were talking too. And if you are considering any aspect of the topics that we talked about as being something that's supportive in your life, definitely let us know. I'd love to hear from you about what you thought about the episode. You can rate and review us on one of your, whatever podcast platform you're listening to. It's super helpful for us. It lets us know what you think, how it's working, but also it helps with other people finding this podcast and hopefully being met exactly with where they are with the message that they need. If you are curious, please reach out to Lisa, have that wonderful conversation with her and make some magic happen. If you end up doing that, come back to us, come back to me, tell me about it. I want to hear about it. There have been some really cool experiences. We brought in a new client recently who heard about us through this podcast, and it was such a beautiful story. And so it's my favorite way, genuinely, to meet new people, work with new people, is people that are attracted to this work that is truly like heartbeat type work for me, to be able to have these conversations with really transformative people and talk about what it is for us to step even more into who we are fully and authentically as ourselves in this life. So if you are feeling called or pulled to join any aspect of the work that I do, whether it be individual coaching, in our group experience that we have every week, in some version of our speaking experience, if you have any feedback or any thoughts on topics to include in the podcast, please, your voice matters, your experience matters. And I would absolutely love to be able to incorporate a little bit of the magic that you're bringing to this world and the things that you're curious about into the work that we're doing. So definitely hit us up. And I can't wait to catch you on the next episode, my friends.